I mean, it's just gonna be the case that it's the least parsimonious position.
Is the least parsimonious position?
Least parsimonious one. I misspoke.
Okay. Most parsimonious position?
Yeah, it's very tricky, so I like.
Are you talking about ontological parsimony? Or are you talking about some other notion of parsimony?
No, ontological parsimony.
Notion though, are you talking about ontological parsimony or some other notion?
Ontological parsimony.
Okay, so why would I hold ontological parsimony as being something which is evidence in favor of proposition or prior raising?
You negate ontological parsimony?
I don't think it's prior raising. I think that it's a loose approximation that we actually care about, which is just how many propositions are necessary to represent all information in a system.
Wait, so what form of parsimony do you say most representative?
The one that I just gave. But is there any reason why I should accept ontological parsimony above it? So here's my criticism of ontological parsimony. If ontological parsimony is true, that would give us infinitely low priors on many worlds interpretation being true. But many worlds interpretation is true, and so ontological parsimony is not something that should be prior raising.
Wait, but no one takes like possible worlds to be. I mean,
I'm talking about many worlds interpretation, not modal realism. And no, it is the case that many worlds interpretation does take them to be concrete. Also, that's not even a good argument against modal realism because people just do. Modal realists do. But I'm not talking about modal I'm not talking about possible worlds. I'm talking about many worlds interpretation.
Can you explain what that is?
The theory in quantum physics that instead of having this brutish decoherent, instead what you have is just all of the different ways that the quantum effects could have been all exist in parallel.
Wait, can you send me a source?
On many worlds interpretation? Sure.
So your critique is that ontological parsimony would negate that position, but that position is true, therefore ontological parsimony is false.
Correct. So here is in the pop out. That's probably one of the easiest, I think, intro sources. It's written by, pretty sure it's written by Yud. Let me check again. It is loading. What the fuck is wrong with my internet today?
I'm a flow chat.
Yeah, it is. It is written by Yud.
Wait, so what? Go ahead.
All I was gonna say is just that if it's the case that ontological parsimony changes our priors, then something with an infinite number of things in it would be something which is we should have infinitely low priors for. And yeah, we very clearly shouldn't have infinitely low priors for things like many worlds interpretation, especially given that it's true.
Well, what would be your answer to the special composition?
I think that the special composition question being answered isn't really even necessary. But I mean, I think that answers that you could give to special composition end up being ones that mostly just attempt to undermine the question. But like, if that's kind of neither here nor there. If your reason in favor of it's just that it's like winning on ontological parsimony, it's not going to be a reason agreed.
Wait, so you would like lean more towards like saying that composition is like root, virtual composition as well?
No.
Okay. That seems most representative of your position. I don't really know how to undermine the question.
So I just kind of want you to engage with what I said first, which is just that your reason in favor of the view is its priors for it are high because of ontological parsimony.
Yeah.
And ontological parsimony isn't prior raising. Do you have a what?
Yeah, I haven't looked into like the other world stuff. So I mean, I'm not gonna. I'll look at.
Okay. Anybody else want to debate?
Yeah, not me.
Oh,
nigga.
also, Arabic name guy. Just because I don't want to be like bad faith and like move you towards positions that I don't think are true. I think meteorological nihilism is true. I'm a meteorological nihilist, but I had to debate against you.
Wait, bro, come on. Wait, can you send me some good defense?
Well, yeah, I mean, I let you unironically run the exact same defense you currently got, but change your definition of parsimony from ontological to the one that I give you. That's it. Just don't use ontological parsimony instead. Yeah, the part. So the simplicity in regards to your definition of parsimony, because obviously parsimony means simplest possible explanation. Simplicity there just means that they just like is represented by the number of propositions necessary to represent all information in the system, and a little bit less jargony. Maybe saying that like smoother would be the simplest possible explanation is the one that requires the least amount of independent propositions to represent it. Now you could say something like, look, yeah, that's you're welcome. But the somebody could say something like, well, what if here's some criticism you might get. Couldn't I just say that this position is true? Wouldn't that represent all the information in it? Well, no, because in addition to understanding what it is that you're in addition to affirming that it's true, you also need all the propositions necessary to understand what that information even is. And that's so much larger. So just how many bits of information are necessary to represent a system, right? How many true or falses? How many ones or zeros? Any of those will give you a better account of simplicity.
Is there like some sort of simplicity as well?
I think that there's a quantum physicist who I pulled it from, but I forget what his name is. I'll try to look it up for you though.
Who else wants to debate that nigga
Thank you.
sinthe, bro?
You're welcome.
I look, you might go take a nap after this shit, bro.
The shit was snoozing, but it was productive and it was good faith.
No, I mean like just like all of these debates after another anyway. Like I'm just tired now.
Can you hear me?
Fair.
Apollo mic's up. We got
What's
Apollo
up,
versus
Apollo?
Synth round
Oh
two.
my god.
I was sleeping through the majority of that actually, but I still heard what was going on while I was sleeping. I was just gonna say
you
that
lost.
you just
Shut
like
the fuck
reference
up,
the
official.
fake information.
Shut the fuck
theory.
up, so awesome.
Anyways, continue, Apollo.
Yeah, I was just saying to Synth that like the kind of parsimony that I mean, because we've already talked about this and we go into the same points. It's just like it's backed up by archaic information theory and phenomenon of steer induction.
True.
Yeah. I think its actual name is statistical parsimony, if I recall correctly.
Another really funny one to argue against ontological parsimony. This one is like reprehensibly bad faith, so I wouldn't recommend anyone run it. But is to argue from. So Apollo, are you familiar with the self-vindication assumption?
No.
So the idea in anthropics is that we can reason from the fact that we exist, that there is a large number of people who exist. So if there was only like here's a easy way of understanding. If it was the case that everybody was on everyone was on birth control for the last million years, that would mean that you're less likely to exist. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you do exist, so that gives you some evidence to suggest that people aren't on birth control, right? That most people aren't. Yeah. It also gives you reason to believe that there are a lot of people. Like that's the whole reason why the birth control thing is good reason to believe, right? Is the fact that if people are on birth control, there are less people. So the chance of you existing goes up proportionally to how many people there are, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, the fact that you exist, that means that if it's the case, there's an infinite number of people who exist. Then that gives us extremely high priors that you exist. It's infinitely expected, and so you have infinitely strong evidence. Right? Given that you exist, there's an infinite number of people.
Yeah, clearly, and that wouldn't be true, obviously.
Yeah.
And the thing is, yeah, and there's even like the solipsist objection, right? like like the whole idea of ontological parsimony. I think sometimes the terms are a bit unclear. Let me turn this off.
Well, the funny thing about that, the only reason
I think it's actually
I want to
yeah,
actually
like,
tie that
yeah,
argument in just for the. Well, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you and be like rude or something. I want to tie it in for the people who didn't really catch the reason why that's relevant. If there's an infinite number of people, that's strong evidence against the ontological parsimony being the type of thing that would be prior raising. Because something which is certainly true is something we have an infinite likelihood of not being true if ontological parsimony affects prior.
Yeah, I think you're just baking the conditional probability, right? So you're saying that like the conditional probability of me existing, given the fact that like there's an infinite number of people existing, would be like basically one on the probability scale. And so given me existing, you'd have to make the claim that like there's an infinite number of people existing or something along the lines like that. But clearly that's not true. But someone might respond to this by saying that when they are using ontological parsimony, I don't believe in this, by the way, but this was like when I was talking to Evan. He would say like ontological parsimony, just like referencing like some ceteris paribus clause. So that's just to say that he's going to justify that by saying, generally speaking, views which has more ontological commitments are going to be views which are false. And so if a view has more ontological commitments, all else being equal, this view would be false. Now, in this case you've given, you could argue that it is not the case that all else is equal because we have outweighing data, or you could say evidential pieces of information, which counts against the proposition that there are infinite number of people, right? It maybe appeal to like, let's say, just vague intuitions or empirical data, or the fact that science suggests that like, hey, this universe has only existed for this amount of time, and that would be evidence for there being a finite number of people in the past, et cetera, et cetera. So there's like outweighing evidence against that proposition. So it's not the case that it's really capturing the concept of ontological parsimony. Uh, just supposed to like devil's advocate, I guess. Yeah. What do you think about the solipsist thing? I love using that one. Like, oh shit, really? Ontological parsimony. Oh, what about solipsism? Is that more likely now? And they're like, oh wait, actually no, it doesn't. And I'm like, wait, that's inconsistent. You know, I like using that one. It's like really funny.
They could say something like, the solipsist isn't providing an explanation. Like, even though it's the case they're not positing anything else, the thing they're providing isn't really an explanation because it doesn't actually predict what's going on. Like, they could say like it's the simplest possible, but it's not an explanation. Like, I think that's probably the objection the ontological parsimony people can give.
When you say explanation, are you going under the ontic kind of explanation in the literature? Like you're talking like some causal relation, like between the thing that's being.
No. All I'm saying is just that the hypothesis predicts the observed result.
Okay, so by explanation, you're just saying you're just talking about predictions.
Yeah. Like, does it correctly predict things?
But do you agree that like, okay, so like that's like a weird usage, because I'm pretty sure you'd agree that like there are a lot of things that people think are explanations which has like zero predictions whatsoever.
Well, I would say they just aren't actually explanations.
Oh well, I mean, I would say that's a weird use of the word. I'm not really used to the term explanation, which is strictly confined to the predictive sense. But of course, if one used the semantics, then yes, it wouldn't actually explain anything clearly.
Yeah. Which is just like a Bayesian approach, right? Like, it's just to say something like, it's like, even though it's the case you have infinite simplicity, you don't have parsimony because it's not the simplest possible explanation, and it's not the simplest possible hypothesis which predicts the observed results.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But I think that like a lot of times, like when you're talking about like hypotheses and explanations and theories, we like use these words interchangeably in like talks about abductive reasoning and trying to predict or trying to see which view is more likely. And so I would agree, or rather, what I would say simply that I have seen a lot of cases where we have some number of hypotheses, like some metaphysical hypotheses or scientific hypotheses, or even hypotheses or theories in quantum mechanics. And yeah, some of them have predictions, some of them don't have any predictions. And so they are still all universally considered to be hypotheses or explanations or whatever.
I don't actually think so. I think that people wouldn't. I don't think I can imagine a single hypothesis in science that doesn't have any predictions it makes. Otherwise, it just wouldn't make it a hypothesis. Are there any examples you're thinking of?
Well, I was just like talking broadly. I was like saying science, or it's like a disjunction, like either science or I could say metaphysics, etc., etc. But I can't think of one right now in science specifically which has no sort of like at least a trivial prediction, even if it gets debunked, right? Yeah, because even classical mechanics, like even like some outdated version of physics, you could say is the type of thing which has at least some trivial prediction. Um, like even folk psychology and folk physics have some levels of predictions, even though they're not actually sure. So
Yeah, that's definitely correct. Yeah.
mhm. But yeah, I don't really like. I think the other problem with ontological parsimony stuff is I don't really know what the word entity means. Like, what do they mean by entities? Like, it's kind of like really unclear what entity actually is. Um, I mean, we both agree like that's kind of like semantic primitive, but I think that usually the definition that people tries to pick out to explain the concept kind of like literally goes against like the view itself in some sense.
That's definitely true.
So
It's also very funny because the person who I was arguing with, they're a mereological nihilist. So
Mhm.
they probably agree that there's no coherent definition of an entity, which makes their view on parsimony really bad. But it seems like
and
they're willing to change that view.
to connect this to the mereological nihilism talk, like one of the objections I just run against a mereological nihilist, I love using by the way. Like, I mean, most mereological nihilists, if not all of them that I've talked to, they're going to say that under this view, there are going to be multiple simple objects, considering that they believe that like all objects are simple and there's no like actual there's no actual divisible objects. There's no object which is a composite object. And so, I mean, what is just going to be entailed from these of the propositions is that for any object X which exists in the universe, or outside this universe, that object is, it's indivisible. Now, the semantics which is connected to the word indivisible is just that which cannot be divided, and that just like asks the modal question, which is like, what's the modality which is being employed when you're saying that this object is indivisible, which just translates to it cannot be divided. And if they're gonna say, well, it's metaphysically impossible, I usually just run the question, which is, okay, what's gonna be the sufficient qualifiers which distinguishes metaphysical possibility from logical possibility? Usually they end up failing on that end, and they also going to make the claim that it is logically impossible for this object to be divided, so it wouldn't be justified to say that it's indivisible, and they also would be justified to say that it is not composite. So that's usually the kind of thing I run.
Yeah,
It's just
I mean, I
unclear what
find that.
neurological analysis is even saying.
Well, I find that to be like definitely an interesting critique. But you agree that it doesn't apply to all views on mereological nihilism, right?
No, but most views, generally speaking.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
There might be like some niche version of neurological analysis which does not commit to like any sort of like modal claim, whatever, which is fine. But I just
Sure,
don't know what that would look like, you know.
I'm not sure it's niche. I think that the context in which there's the neurological nihilists that I've talked to, myself included, usually are using the term indivisible. There's a non-modal indication in the sense that it's what they're referring to is just that there aren't any joints in nature to slice things along.
Mm.
Like there's nothing real they correspond to. They're just something we make up.
What's your view on the idea that like modal realism commits one into belief
You
in a
niggas just
modal?
fucking debate, bro.
We debated.
Bro, you niggas got the pairs to be debating, bro. We got the best fucking debate in the server.
Like Apollo,
Two
just
debates in a row. You niggas are two
debate the
fucking
nigga,
first.
bro. Like you're arguing with him now, sort of semi, and then you're also probing his views. Like just fucking debate the bro.
We're just discussing. I'm discussing.
At this point, like, come on, bro. Is that Monkey
And I
King?
just woke up. Like, god damn it. I got to get rhetorical and I just wake up. Come on now. But I think someone said.
No, honestly, Sinthe versus Juju.
Huh?
Sinthe versus Juju.
Oh,
I'm
by
just
the way,
gonna bring
Sinthe,
discussions.
are you interested in this 2v2 tournament?
Oh,
Probably,
here we go.
probably not.
He's basically asking you to marry him. Like at this point.
No, I don't think. I don't think that. Look, I don't usually do like tournaments because I don't really have the time to be committed to doing like I couldn't like do a full one. I'd have to like probably like drop out eventually or like not be able to. Um, just because like there's like work scheduling, there's like real life shit. It's a huge hassle.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you
But
ask
they've been a bit
Chester,
more active
Apollo,
recently, though.
why don't you ask Chester
active
if
recently.
you can like use
Yeah,
Sinthe,
I'm about
and then
to-
if he drops out, you can switch.
Yeah, so like the thing is, Sim, if you could at least contribute like maybe a hour, because each debate is 45 minutes. So if you could contribute like a hour of the day or of the next like 1 hour every 2 days or something like that to a debate, then that'd be really dope.
I'm not gonna be able to soon. I've been online really frequently recently just because of the fact that I'm off work for so until the fucking 10th, I'm just like I'm able to just relax in Discord. But I'll go back to being like barely ever online very soon.
Oh, okay.
This nigga said relax on Discord.
I love that.
I wanted to.
I'm a debating at this issue. I gotta stop. I gotta do something else with my time.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that Sasuke guy is like a Yapatron. Like he is the only person on my YouTube channel where I actually say Yapatron in my title. Like he yaps
Everyone,
like
sync
forever.
docs in chat. Sync docs in
Like,
chat.
it's
Sync
crazy.
docs in chat. Stick with me is being posted in chat. Look in chat.